Welcome to today's explainer for May 9th, 2026. Today, we are unpacking a truly fascinating 2017 paper by Crum, Akinola, Martin, and Fath titled The Role of Stress Mindset in Shaping Cognitive, Emotional, and Physiological Responses to Challenging and Threatening Stress. Published in the journal Anxiety, Stress, and Coping, we're going to look closely at how our deeply held beliefs about stress literally and biologically alter us from the inside out. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this because, honestly, it challenges pretty much everything we think we know about pressure. Here's the quick roadmap for our scientific journey today. 1. 2 views of stress. 2. The experiment setup. 3. Measuring the impact. 4. The surprising findings. And finally, 5. Why your mindset matters. Let's just jump right in. Section 1. 2 views of stress. Demands, resources, and mindsets. So stress is a totally universal human problem, right? We all deal with it, whether it's a crazy deadline, a tough conversation, or just a sudden emergency. Now, traditionally, psychologists have viewed stress through the lens of primary and secondary appraisals. Basically, first you look at a situation and ask, okay, how demanding is this? That's your primary appraisal. Then you ask, do I actually have the resources, the skills, or the knowledge to handle it? That's the secondary appraisal. If the demands outweigh your resources, you see it as a threat. If your resources are adequate, you see it as a challenge. But this paper asks a completely different question. Okay, let's dive into the core theory from the paper. The authors define stress mindset as something totally separate from whether a specific situation is a threat or a challenge. As they put it, stress mindset is conceptualized as the extent to which an individual holds the mindset that stress has enhancing consequences or holds the mindset that stress has debilitating consequences. You see, this is a meta-cognitive belief. It's your overarching philosophy about stress itself. Do you believe stress makes you sharper, stronger, and more resilient? Or do you believe it inherently drains you, harms your health, and just ruins your performance? Moving on to Section 2, the experiment setup, the 2x2 design. To see if this metacognitive belief actually changes our biology independently of the stressful situation itself, the researchers had to be incredibly clever. Let's head into the laboratory and see exactly how they set this up. So the researchers grabbed 113 participants and walked them through a highly structured chronological process. Step 1 was the mindset manipulation. Participants watched a short 3-minute video that oriented them to either the enhancing effects of stress or the debilitating effects of stress. Step 2 was the stressor itself. They used the Trier social stress task. If you haven't heard of it, it's an 8-minute mock job interview where participants have to deliver a speech and answer questions about their strengths and weaknesses. It is notoriously stressful. I mean, just thinking about it probably makes your palms sweat a little. And then step 3 happened right in the middle of that intense interview, the feedback manipulation. And this perfectly illustrates their experimental matrix, a classic 2x2 design. On one axis, we have the mindset they were primed with, enhancing versus debilitating. On the other axis, we have the feedback they received during the mock interview. In the positive feedback condition, which was designed to trigger a challenge state, evaluators nodded, smiled, leaned forward, and gave explicit praise. But in the negative feedback condition, designed to trigger a threat state, the evaluators furrowed their brows, crossed their arms, and gave explicit negative criticism. Section 3, Measuring the Impact. Inside the lab. By isolating the mindset intervention from the actual stress evaluation, the researchers created this perfect environment to see how our beliefs literally shape our reality. So, what were the researchers actually looking for once these folks were thoroughly stressed out in that interview room? Well, they measured the impact across 3 distinct buckets. Effectively, they tracked positive and negative emotions using a standardized schedule. Cognitively, they tested attentional bias using a dot probe task. That essentially measures if participants' eyes naturally darted toward happy faces or angry faces on a screen. They also tested cognitive flexibility by asking them to brainstorm as many creative alternative uses for a newspaper as possible, all under time pressure. And finally, physiology. They took saliva swabs throughout the whole experiment to measure cortisol, our well-known stress hormone, and DHEAS, which is an anabolic growth hormone. Section 4. The surprising findings, the data revealed. What is truly remarkable about this next set of data is how dramatically it proves that our bodies are listening to our beliefs. We're about to see exactly what happened in the saliva, the minds, and the moods of these participants. Let's start with the physiological findings, specifically the neuroendocrine data. As you'd probably guess, cortisol, the catabolic stress hormone, spiked for everyone during the mock interview.
But the DHES levels tell a completely different story. DHES is an anabolic hormone, meaning it actively promotes growth, physiological resilience, and adaptation. Those who were primed with the stresses-enhancing mindset experienced a significantly sharper increase in this resilience-building DHES hormone compared to the debilitating mindset group. And the wild part? This happened regardless of whether they were being smiled at or scowled at by the evaluators.
For the data nerds out there, here is the exact effect size for that quadratic DHEAS response. Eta squared equals 0.186. This is a very robust statistical finding. It proves that a stress-enhancing mindset actually promotes physiological thriving under both threat and challenge conditions. Think about that for a second. Your body is physically gearing up to grow from the experience, literally just because of a 3-minute video you watched beforehand. Now, let's see how this biological reality spilled over into their emotions. When tracking positive and negative affect, a really important detail pops up. Negative affect stayed high for people in the threat condition. I mean, it was still a highly stressful, unpleasant interview, but tracking the positive affect reveals this fascinating divergence. For participants who had a stresses-enhancing mindset and received positive feedback, their positive emotion actually increased significantly after the speech.
The effect size here is eta squared equals 0.131. This highlights a specific post-speech difference, showing that those in the enhancing mindset, challenge condition, felt significantly better emotionally after the task. They were able to ride that wave of stress and actually experience a genuine emotional boost. And the cognitive results? Just as mind-blowing. Remember the dot probe task in the newspaper creativity test? Participants with a stresses-enhancing mindset in the positive feedback or challenge condition showed a significantly greater attentional bias toward happy faces rather than angry ones. And in that same condition, they scored much higher on cognitive flexibility. They came up with far more creative and diverse uses for the newspaper than the folks who believed stress was debilitating.
And here is the effect size for that cognitive flexibility boost. Eta squared equals 0.079. Their minds were literally more open, nimble, and creative while under pressure, entirely because they had been primed to believe that the stress they were feeling was an enhancing force. Section 5, Why Your Mindset Matters, the real-world application. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of dense neuroendocrine data, cognitive metrics, and effect sizes. But what does a spike in DHEAS or an attentional bias to happy faces actually mean for you tomorrow morning? Let's tie all this back to your daily life. This is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Adopting a stress-enhancing mindset does not magically make things easy. The participants still felt negative emotions. Their cortisol still spiked. Stress is still stress. But the mindset shift alters how you process that stress. It recruits and magnifies the biological attributes, like that DHEAS hormone, needed for long-term adaptation, along with the cognitive openness needed to creatively solve the problem sitting right in front of you. And that brings us right to the researchers' ultimate conclusion. I'll read exactly what they wrote. A short manipulation designed to generate a stresses-enhancing mindset can improve responses to both challenging and threatening stress. Just think about the sheer power of that. An incredibly brief intervention, just orienting someone to the fact that stress can fuel growth, fundamentally altered how their biology handled a demanding threat. Which leaves us with a pretty massive question to close out on today. We can't always control the demands placed on us, and we definitely can't always instantly conjure up the resources to meet them. But we absolutely can control our mindset. So how will you appraise your next unavoidable stressor, now that you know your biology is actively listening to your beliefs? Will you let it debilitate you, or will you use it to enhance your resilience? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.